We can stop the music. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, doggies in the background. All right. Hi, Stephanie. Welcome back to the Power of the Black Madonna. I kind of want to check in with everybody about the last people who were here. I think Stephanie was here. Did you have any thoughts after that session? Oh, I'm not on video. That's why I'm seeing Joni. Okay. Stephanie, did you have any thoughts after the last session?
No, really, for me, I'm just processing a lot of things. I got interested because Mia was telling me about it, and it drew me in. But I'm just kind of still processing things, and being Catholic is putting a lot of stuff in perspective.
Well, yeah, and probably even more so today. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pray us in, and then I'm going to next check in with Corrine. All right. Divine Mother, how sweet it is that you are always near, that this love, this peace, this joy, this freedom, this wisdom, this magnificence, this truth lives in you, and therefore lives in me and of all of life. And so we bless this time of coming together in communion with you and with one another as we explore the nature of the divine feminine. So with an abundance of gratitude, I lovingly release this word to the heart of God as the mind of God acts upon it. And so it is. Amen. Ashe. Aho. So I want to check in with Corrine first to see if you had any thoughts after last week's session. Corrine?
Not specific to last week's session, but yeah, I'm very much into just incorporating the Black Madonna, the female mother energy into almost everything, which I did not do before. So,
all right, wonderful, yeah, wonderful.
That's good.
All right, well, I'm gonna start to share my screen, and make sure I pull up the right screen. So today I'm going to talk about some of the origins of the Black Madonna as we know it in 20th century. Because, you know, as I mentioned in the first series and in the first session, she's traveled all over the world. And so there is a variety of portrayals. And, you know, the term Black Madonna itself is usually talking about the statues or the paintings that's in the Western Christendom of the Blessed Virgin Mary and the Infant Jesus, where both figures are depicted as Black. And so you can find it in Catholic and Orthodox countries. Now, there's paintings that are Byzantine. We looked at those during the first series. We looked at some other ones also from Africa and in antiquity. We looked at some representations that go back that were carved in stone. And so another reason that people say the Black Madonna is Black is because there were some white images that were portrayed that became worn over time. And then the third reason that is being discussed about why the Madonna is dark-skinned is because of pre-Christian deities that have been re-envisioned as the Madonna and child. And that's some of the African goddesses that I talked about last time. And we're going to visit a couple of those again, and I'm going to introduce a new African goddess as well. And so here's what I want us to know about this part of the world in terms of the Americas, is that Brazilians and Cubans and Haitians are under the influence of African slaves that over time permeated daily life. And so Africans lent Europeans the name and the characteristics, for example, of the goddess Yemanja. And so the Portuguese provided consecrated images of the Virgin of the Immaculate Conception with her erect posture. And so what that ends up to look like is something like this. And this is also pretty indicative of the commodification of Yemanja. And you see all of those statues that are there. You see all of those representations that are there. And, you know, a lot of that is, you know, making money and really, really not being very present with the divine feminine. And certainly, for the most part, not really aware, because this picture was taken in Brazil in 1996. Obviously, it's showing, you know, some statues that have been there over time. But a lot of this has been about kind of re-imaging who the Black Madonna was in different cultures. And so you're going to see more of that as I start to share more slides. And so in Peralba's book, and all of the images that she had, she was looking at the syncretic blend that has taken place around the world, from ancient mother goddesses to Eurasia, to Native American, to African cultures in Mexico, Poland, and Brazil, and Guadalupe, and all of these different images. And so in certain places, Yemanja has been a symbol of identity and resistance against oppression. And so, you know, and that has some bit to do with the official conflict, the official control of the church and state, and the conflict with the control of church, right? And so there's a lot of politics that you'll start to see more in terms of this particular session, because we start to hear about how there have been, you know, different kinds of appropriations, and there's been a lot of borrowing from different cultures that were not known to the people who first learned about them. And so I want us to really be able to know that the first African slaves were brought to Brazil in 1516, and in 1517, the Spanish Emperor Carlos V officially permitted the introduction of Black slaves into the Antilles. And so in Cuba, slavery persisted until its abolition in 1880, and in Brazil until 1888. So what shows up are how the blended cultures have kind of revealed a transformation of sorts. Like this slide shows multiple Yemanja statues, and somebody tell me, what do you notice about these figures? What culture do they look like they come from? I couldn't hear that. Did somebody say something?
I'm sorry, I didn't know my sound was on. I said Latin, but
okay.
They look like Wonder Woman.
Well, part of it is a combination of both, right? And so what happens is, you know, the name is not the same as the African spelling, which is with a Y and no accent. So part of that is renaming in a sense, but capturing only part of her essence and certainly not her physicality, right? They did the same thing with Oshun, who they renamed Aksum, right? And so, we know that, Oshun is about sweet waters. And so now she's been converted into a mermaid. And this is in Brazil as well. And so this is the kind of makeover, if you will, that has occurred because of the traveling of the Black Madonna. Now, any questions or comments before I move forward?
I was just taken by the physical, like
Right.
in the other slide, like they're showing her, they're showing her bosoms and in this
Right.
one. So yeah, I'm struck by that.
Yeah.
And then the mermaid thing, I'm like, what? A mermaid?
Right. So, just understand that this is common and this has happened all over the world. I just happen to be focusing more on Central and South America today. And so because there are people that may not be aware of things like the Candomblé. The Candomblé ceremony, they've taken Yemanja, Nana, and who they're calling Oxasi, right? And so this is, when you look at the images here, what do you notice about their physicality? Right? What do they look like in terms of their skin color? Who do you think they are?
Well, they're definitely darker. And I mean, from what they look black from what I see. Maybe one light
Right.
skin. It's hard to tell the one in the middle what it is, but
right, because the covering up.
and maybe
Right.
one is pregnant or she's just big. I don't know.
Right. And so just to kind of bring things into context, there's a lot of blending of cultures that are coming through these expressions. So they're not all looking the same because they're derivations of different cultures, right?
Yeah, I would say their dress does not look typical like a Black person would dress.
Now, remember, this is in Brazil. So also want to, kind of caution us to remember that there are various traditions that don't happen anywhere else, right? So there's different rituals. I introduced y'all to some of the rituals, but you haven't been yet introduced to Nana Buluku, who is the goddess of new cycles. And so Nana is the one in the middle. And she's a guardian. She's known as someone who is limitless. And so she's the most high supreme being. She's the primordial mother. She's the grandmother of all the Orishas, which are the deities in Africa. And she's the creator of all that we see. And so She gave birth to the first deities, a woman and man, twins, Mawu and Lisa. And then they formed the first spiritual trinities. Then all of that world birthing wore her out. So she went to go rest and enjoy her praise and her creation. So her attitude shifts from nurturing to fearsome between cultures. And she's so revered among some that her name is never even spoken. Just like back in in Judaism, you could not speak the name of God. So she's feared among some people when her name is spoken, and everybody has to throw themselves to the floor in prayer position. Now, Nana is no joke. So you need to come to her humbly and honestly. And she has been miscategorized as bitter, angry, and with a crone energy, right? And so the truth is that she's a fighter who protects women and has time for nobody's nonsense, okay? And she aids the reincarnated souls in being ready to be reborn. And so I'm presuming that probably in the ceremonial headdress that she has on, it may be part of some of that activity around aiding the reincarnated souls. And so she's got both a masculine and a feminine energy, but her energy is always matriarchal. She mostly works with priestesses. And so Nana is the goddess of muddy waters. She carries an ibiri, which is a magical scepter. And that's made from the stalks of palm leaves and shells. And so her ibiri cannot be held by men. She's a wise woman, and she's an herbalist with healing energy that predates the Orishas and the Iron Age. So she goes back pretty far. So, so Nana is revered for her strength. And so around 1890, a Brazilian ethnologist noted that enslaved African people would sing when one of them was being violently punished. And so the enslavers found it strange, and they took it as proof of the inhumanity of Black people. But they didn't know that the African people were singing their prayers for protection during these horrific whippings and torture. And so some of the songs were Kandable chants to Nana and to other Orishas. And that was to support the person being tortured. So they would petition Nana to lift the abused person up and take the pain for them. And so there would be lots of stories about Nana Buluku. She's claimed by the Fon, by the Yoruba, by the Yui people, and a lot of others. So she's not only in Benin and Togo and Ghana, Nigeria, but she's also found in other African countries and in some of the African religions in South America, the United States, and the Caribbean. So this is another illustration of Yemanja and Aksum, who we know as Yemanja and Oshun, being represented as mermaids at the Casa de Yemanja in Salvador, Brazil. That's supposed to say Brazil. Okay, I'm going to stop for questions before I continue or comment so far. And then I got to remember to take myself off of invisible. Okay, let me check the chat. There's something there. Oh, okay, Maureen Claffey left. Okay. So
the part about the Trinity.
Mm-hmm. What about the Trinity?
What you said that Nana is okay, so Yemanja, Nana, and I don't know how you Oshun.
Right.
That
what they call Aksum in that area, right?
So together they make up the Trinity.
Well, the Trinity that I was in that last particular picture was one Trinity, but there was also another Trinity that I was referring to when I was talking about Nana and her children. And so I'll say this, there's a lot of different trinities, as we know, right? And so let's see.
Well, I guess I was trying to figure out if there is
it's Yemanja and Nana and Aksum is the Trinity that was in one of those pictures, or
and
maybe
so
more than one of those pictures.
Is it connected at all to what, Christians learn as the Holy Trinity?
A lot of things have been translated and retranslated, but I don't think so, because the other thing about what people don't understand about African spirituality is that gender is fluid. So if you look at it at face value, then it could be possible, but energetically, I don't think so, because there's too much of the same divine feminine that are in these three particular expressions. And so one thing that is true about, if you look at the energy of Jesus, that it is masculine. And if you look at the energy of the supreme being, and in African spirituality, is name is Oludumare. It's very much male, but again, have to understand, and this is from antiquity, that gender is very fluid. So I would say that it's not that Trinity, but that the Trinity of the three represents multiple powers that are necessary to work together.
I think that that question comes from just my idea of, how much has been borrowed, how much of Christianity has been borrowed and changed to reflect, patriarchal, hierarchy, as opposed to, matriarchal. That was like the thought that I was having.
Yeah. And that's, that's what we've been talking about the whole time, about how the female has constantly been suppressed. And even though there's a great deal of energy that's still being carried through, we're not being seen as the authorities. We're being seen as supporting players, right? In terms of the feminine. However, that's not the truth, because the ultimate energy of the divine feminine, or the mother, divine mother, has the power to create in a way that the divine masculine does not. And the wisdom, particularly if you go back to African culture, is still lying in the realm of the feminine. So when you think about Sophia being a divine expression, and some of what New Thought has borrowed from the Gnostics is that divine feminine, when you think about the soul or the law, the receptivity that is the creative aspect of life, then you really get to see how crucial the feminine plays a role, her role is in the whole creation story. But I'm going to go back to the slides if there are no other questions, because there's a couple of other points I want to make before I introduce a new character to us today. No other comments? Okay, I'm going to go back to So we left off at those particular expressions. And then I want you to meet Mami Wata. Now, you know, none of these women look particularly docile, but a lot of people can be intimidated by Mami Wata. But even she has had different expressions that have been borrowed by other cultures. But this is closer to her original expression. They call her the goddess of nakedness. And her message is that I have the courage to be vulnerable. And so she's the keeper of mysteries. Mami Wata is the keeper of mysteries. And so she is the real mermaid goddess. And the oldest art in the world are the rock paintings that were created thousands of years ago by the Quashan people in South Africa and Botswana. And so the drawings from that era show healers with magical half-human creatures, including mermaids. So Mama Wata is known as the mother of the water throughout West Africa, Southern Africa, Central Africa, and beyond. So Mami Wata and her sisters was said to live in the Ikpoba River in Benin City, Nigeria. And you know, some other people claim her, like Benin, Togo, and Ghana, but they honor her as an Orisha, which is fine, but she's really not an Orisha. She's really her own pantheon, and she's venerated throughout many traditions. Mami Wata has one of the most devoted, active followings worldwide, and she exudes griot energy as her story is told through a number of different cultures. And so the energy of the water spirit is never passive. And so as a water queen, Mami Wata has great influence over the emotions of her devotees. So, so we spend the first 9 months of our lives floating in water. And to be a Mami Wata initiate is no light commitment. So if you pledge to Mami Wata, that means you have to be honest about who you are and how you show up. And being Mami Wata's devotee requires you to live and speak your truth. And so she gives her followers with clairvoyance and healing powers. And so this nakedness is very critical because that's the whole point around vulnerability. Are you capable of being physically or emotionally wounded and then open to attack or damage? Are you vulnerable to criticism? So most people kind of find that to be a scary place. So, you know, also some people are not very available to be emotionally honest. So Mami Wata really brings us a lot to think about. I'm gonna stop again for questions and comments. Okay, and all of these people have, and for those of you who are familiar with Peralba's book, The Black Madonna, she's got them all in here, and she's very, very clear about how she, you know, respects each one's uniqueness and explains how the different cultural changes show up, but she maintains the integrity of each one of them. And so the attire that you saw when those women in the candomblé ceremony, that's Baroque inspired, right? So again, you got a lot of influences coming from Europe You got a lot of influences coming from Africa. And so when you blend those together in Latin America, you can see all kinds of iterations come up. And so one of the rituals in the Candomblé religion is, also practiced under the guise of Catholic saints in Baroque attire. So you have the Catholic influence here because of how they chose to use these particular goddesses. And so Peralta says when she moved from New York to Texas, she witnessed the disappearing traditions of Spanish medieval Catholicism with manifestations as the pastores and the posadas were vibrant here. And so special focus was given to the worship of the Virgin of Guadalupe and her feast on December 12th in the form of matechines dances. And so she would notice the cross-cultural dressing and the other hybrid practices where multi-layered identities were negotiated. And they were pretty idiosyncratic of post-colonial societies, which Latin Americans and Caribbeans culture she also explores in her book. So any other comments or questions? All right, I want to kind of stop and revisit. Did anybody do the self-love exercise? I think some of you did the self-love dedication, or it's actually a petition. The exercise where you wrote the affirmation to yourself, and there was the opportunity to create a jar where you put in brown sugar and honey and maybe photographs and all of that. It's just a way to take some time with yourself. I think a lot of times when we pray for other people, and really the main prayer is to pray for yourself, right? And so because we're talking about the revolutionary love, right? Then we were looking at, okay, let's look at how we can start with ourselves with that revolutionary love. And, and we had a guide for that. And that guide was Oshun. So there are many different expressions that I've shared with you. So I want to take a poll for a minute and ask, who's your favorite that you've heard about so far in series 2? Some of them were also in series 1, right? So we've talked about, and maybe you don't have a favorite, we've talked about Sarah. We've talked about Oshun. You got introduced to Matawada today. We talked about who else did we talk about? Anyway, we talked about a lot of different people over the last 5 sessions, but I just want y'all to understand something about divination too. Divination, it has its roots in African spirituality. And it's basically, even flipping a coin is divination, but it's a reading without the consecrated tools. But a lot of divination paths have been really done with all kinds of things out of nature. But they're just tools so that you can hear the voice and the guidance of the goddess. Did you want to say something, Corrine? Okay.
No, I just with the I didn't do the ritual, but I did have it folded and I kept it and I almost forgot about it. But at one moment when I was a little bit down or like going through stuff, you know, it was there and I was able to open it and read it and it was very soothing. And it was
Excellent. That's what this is about. Excellent. Good job. Good job. So, yeah, I mean, you know, some people may get a little spooky with rituals and divinations because maybe that's not something that you're used to. But really, even if you're Catholic, you've been doing some kind of rituals and divinations. You know, the priest holding up the host, all of that stuff is ritual and divination, right? And because you may see it in a different format because it's more ancient, you know, and you're seeing things that are not processed, you know, discs that you put in your mouth, but more like things that are natural to the environment, like honey and brown sugar and those kinds of things, right? So to really get in touch with the fiber of the divine feminine, you can have, you know, different ways other than maybe what you're used to that may feel a little bit more natural, or they may come to mind if you're using honey or you're using brown sugar. Oh, okay, well, that reminds me of like Oshun. But, you know, because Sarah represents the divine lineage, she's also, you know, representing the lineage of Jesus, of Magdalene, you know, and so she's also representative of something that is available to us all, and that perhaps we can also see the possibility of having that connection through her ritual. Like you can write your own ancestral tribute prayer. You know, I think I said in the last session that it's important to stay in touch with your ancestors and to pull their pictures out because they're right here. They're that close all the time. And so if we are feeling cut off, but we connect with our ancestors, then we get empowered. And that's why you see a lot of libation happening, you know, with Black people during certain ceremonies. Like we did it with honoring freedom. We started with a libation. And so you just have a plant to water that's representative of giving, you know, tribute to your ancestors. And so I do have an ancestral tribute prayer. Is anybody interested in that? Okay, I see a couple of nods and yes. So you can make a list of the women ancestors that you want to pay tribute to. It could be in your own family lineage or it could be in your cultural lineage. So if it's Celtic or African, whatever it might be, you may look at those women ancestors that you resonate with, and you probably also will think about people that you know, maybe a grandmother, auntie, you know, a great grandmother, whomever. So make a list of those female ancestors, and then also make a list of the elements in nature that you want to pay homage to, right? So put them in the order that you want, and then you can say, I honor you, grandma, or I honor you, apple, or I honor you, tree, whatever it is that you pick in nature, and then whatever you call your female ancestor that you want to give reverence to. I give reverence to grandma, or I salute grandma. You know, I give reverence to auntie for loving us. I give reverence to this tree for, you know, providing me with shade, whatever it is that you feel that makes you feel that connection with them. And so you can, you know, add the prayer to your jar if you have one, or you can just create your own goddess, you know, journal. I think I invited y'all to do that before. And so it's not unlike the prayer that you said to yourself about how wonderful you are, right? This is just acknowledging your ancestors. So you can prepare your ritual space, right? You can prepare your altar. You can pour libations. You might have a plant nearby and pour libations, and you can read your prayer, or you can just add it to your altar. It's really up to you, but these are just ideas about how you might want to sit quietly and receive your ancestors. And so once you invite them in, then allow them to give you guidance that they can share with you. And then you can close your eyes and see yourself in a circle with them, right? And then find out, notice who comes to speak to you and why they've come to speak with you, what they have to share with you. And so, you know, the invitation is to sit for 20 minutes with your ancestors and, you know, take notes in your journal from whatever you get after sitting with them. And so, you know, whatever you might want to do a reading after, just to kind of, you know, download their guidance. It's up to you. So any thoughts about this part? This is the ritual part. And so it's just an opportunity to start to embody more of the divine feminine and to connect. So Corinne says she felt very connected with Sarah. Yeah, yeah. And so have you been communicating with Sarah, Corinne?
I only listened to the replay today, so
okay.
not yet.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, did you have any kind of connection with her before you heard the replay?
No. It just came
Okay.
on strong during the replay, and I just
Okay.
it felt kind of like personal, like a personal
Good.
familiarity that I
Good.
hadn't known about before.
Yeah, that's great. And so, you know, and I will share a little bit more about Sarah. You know, she's like the Romani Black Madonna, right? So even though Sarah herself is, you know, from Egypt, you know, we look at, you know, the culture that adopted her with the Romani people. And so she's got thousands and thousands of people doing pilgrimages to her. And so, yeah.
Excuse me.
Sarah says to unbury your ancestors, that we have so much history that we don't have access to. So exalt in the parts that we do know. Right. Was somebody trying to say something?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, I'm Joanna.
Hi,
This
Joanna.
this is my first time popping in, and I wish I had come earlier because this is amazing. So I'm Puerto Rican from the Bronx, and we have like a huge culture of espiritismo. And I don't know, did you talk about Yemanja already? Because even if you have or you haven't, she's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll listen back to the recording.
And well, I mean, I talked about Yemanja with regard to Latin culture, and I talked about, but I can say a lot more about Yemanja, and thank you for that, because I meant to.
No, that's fine. I love it. Go for it. Because yeah, we love her.
Yes.
I don't know if you have like heard of botanicas. Like we have entire like little spiritual stores here, and she's everywhere. And like I've done, like my mom grew up doing rituals, and I've done, and I just let that go. I guess this is, you know, becoming more, I guess, traditional in my faith. And I don't know why, because she was my favorite and I loved her and I miss her. And so thank you for, so elaborate.
Yeah, and I think I even showed a picture. Let me see if I can pull that back up, if I can grab it. We showed the Kundalini ceremony with Yemanja, Nana, and Oxasi.
Yeah, the white. Yep, you have to wear all white. Exactly.
Right. And we showed the different Yemanja statues at the Salvador Botanica.
Yeah, that's the one that I know, because there's multiple iterations, like you said, and she's the one that I recognize.
This one is the one you recognize?
Yes, yep, she's the one that's in. And I don't know, again, if it's like the Euro, you know, the sort of.
It is. And and so listen, listen to the recording, because I talked about how that occurred, and also the different kind of cultural changes and modifications.
It's amazing.
And
I'm excited to go back and look at these. Thank you.
Yeah, and so Yemanja is the awakening goddess who helps us to, let me stop this sharing and get back to, what do y'all see now?
You already stopped sharing. We just don't see your face.
Yeah. Okay, here I am. Here I come.
But your camera's not on, but yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, so she's a high priestess, and she is truly powerful. Yemanja is definitely one of the water goddesses, and so I want to, I'll do a little bit of her divination. So to honor Yemanja, she's the goddess of awakening. And there's a ritual that she has. It's a coconut head wash ritual. But anyway, Yemanja is the keeper of mysteries. And so whether you meet her as Yemajo, Yemanja, Yemanja, or Yemaya, she's a healing and loving energy. And so she is has the Yoruba mother goddess roots. And so she never leaves you. And she was called by her enslaved children in Cuba, and she controls the ocean, the amniotic fluid, and creative endeavors that we birth. So you got a lot of support, a lot of creativity with Yemanja. And so this is the one who they say Harriet Tubman was with when she said, wade in the water, children. My God's gonna trouble the water, right? And so she was there helping with that spiritual. So they say that's why dogs could not track the enslaved peoples, because of Yemanja. And so in some stories, Yemanja and Oshun are sisters, and in others, they're mother and daughter. Either way, you usually find them in the same place at the same time. And so she's a nurturing goddess, so she doesn't like drama, right? There's a story here that Yemaya knew of Oshun's love of mirrors, jewels, and the beauty of her coily, curly hair. These things may have seemed superficial to others, but Yemaya knew her heart and loved her for who she was. When things were good, they were splendid, but when the wars invaded their realm, everything changed. Oshun was forced to flee with the white dress on her back. Yemaya heard of her anguish, but could not get to her. Oshun sold her jewels to eat and lost her pride. She washed her one white dress in the river until it turned yellow. From the agony of the situation, her beautiful hair fell out in clumps. So that's a story about when Yemanja found her, then Oshun was distraught and her vibrancy was gone and she felt poor and ugly. And Yemanja took her in her arms and hugged her tight. And then Yemanja floated back in with the jewels and she showered them on Oshun and said, "You're a queen always." And she gave Oshun a peacock and said, "This beautiful creature is now yours and will forever reflect your beauty inside and out." And she pulled back her Jele crown, revealing that she had cut off half of her big curly afro, and the other half she made into a beautiful wig. "And here's your hair, my daughter, until yours grows back. You will never, ever lose what makes you, you." And so daughters of Oshun have always defended Yemanja and vice versa. So you can honor Yemanja in your dreams. So she is someone, if you've been asleep, or if you've been confused, or if you thought you weren't as good as other people, she will come and visit you. Her number is 7. And so, what cowries are? Those are little white shells. I don't have my cowrie ring on right now, but I have some shells somewhere nearby. But anyway, so cowries and parsley represent wealth, and watercress represents health. And these are all Yemanja's symbols. So, and her colors are ocean blue and white. This is the part you probably already know, Joanna. In Brazil, Festa de Yemanja is celebrated on January 1st. And devotees wear white and gather on the beaches starting New Year's Eve to jump over 7 waves and leave offerings for the goddess. And you can do this wherever you are, where you have a body of water, right? And there's a 17-day Yemanja festival in Nigeria too. It begins in October. And so all the women dance these ritual dances during her feast. And her day is September 7th in Cuba, February 2nd in Uruguay, and December 8th in other places. And her day of the week is Saturday. She's associated with the moon. And so most of the harvest festivals in West Africa, like Nigeria's New Yam Festival, are planned around the moon. And her year begins on the first moon of June with the Ifa festival. Ife. So, yeah. There's some music by Celia Cruz called Yemanja. And there's some music we played before we started recording. That is a prayer for Yemanja. Joni, who did I say that artist was that was singing the Yemanja recording? I can't remember. But anyway.
There's a salsa song that I like by Hector Lavoe called Aguanile, and the first part of it is just him chanting to Yemanja. And it's like a salsa song. It's just so embedded in our culture.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay. Yeah, we get a little skittish when it comes to playing music on this YouTubes because then they'll shut us down. So anyway, you can look for it, you can Google it. Any other thoughts before we go? Yes, go ahead, Corinne.
Could you just share what book you were reading from when you were?
Well, this particular book is African Goddess Initiation. And I was also making references from Peralva's book there. And so I was kind of cross-referencing both of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's just some people don't see the connection between Black Madonna and some of the other cultural traditions, but it's all in there. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts before I pray us out? How many people are going to do the ancestor ritual? Yay. That's going to fortify you a lot. Oh, Divine Mother, I'm so grateful for your presence here, for your guidance. So grateful that you continue to nourish and nurture us and build us back up with your grace. Through Yemanja, through Oshun, through Mami Wata, through all the wonderful spirits such as Sarah and so many more. We just give thanks for this awakening and support. And with a loving gratitude, I release this word to the heart of God as the mind of God acts upon it. And so it is. Amen. Ashe. Aho. Hope to see y'all next week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.